Agencies charge $10,000 or more for the SEO audit checklist process I'm about to show you. Just follow this process step by step and you'll have a complete battle plan for improving your rankings in Google, ChatGPT, and everywhere your customers are searching. I'm Nathan Gotch and I've led hundreds of successful SEO campaigns over the last decade and have helped thousands of businesses get predictable SEO results through my SEO systems. So let's get right into it with number one, which is find crawling and indexing opportunities. So there are two things you need to do to get started with this audit. Number one, you're going to need a simple Google Sheet. Now, I'm going to be building this from scratch, but normally I'd be using templates, which are actually available inside of Gotch SEO Academy. But for the sake of doing this, I'm going to show you how to do it completely from scratch, from end to end. So first, get a Google Sheet and we're going to create the first tab, which is crawl. And then we're going to go over to Screaming Frog. So I highly recommend investing in Screaming Frog. I don't get any affiliate commission or anything by making this recommendation. I've just been using this tool for probably about a decade now. And it's really critical for this audit process. So I highly, highly recommend. There's other ones out there, but this is the one I prefer because it's just nice and raw and does exactly what it needs to do. Now, it's extremely powerful. And so you have to make sure that you set it up the right way. So we're going to go through some real quick configuration, protocols here, and then we'll get into kind of the more analysis, quantitative analysis. Okay. First things first, go to configuration. Okay. We're going to go to crawl config up here. And a couple of things. I usually like to make this very simple. I'll uncheck all of the resource links. I'll uncheck a lot of things that are just going to put a heavy load when you do this crawl. So if you just want to follow the settings that I have, this is going to be the quickest crawl that you can get and get the most bang for your buck, right? Okay. Because you don't want to get lost in all the little minutia. Okay. So I would just do this first. Now, next, we're going to go to extraction. Once again, follow the same settings that I have. You can also include structured data here, but I'm going to be doing this for gotchseo.com. We don't have a ton of structured data on that site, so it's not really a concern of mine. But if you're doing local or you're doing e-com, it might make a lot of sense to use the structured data audit as well. Okay. Limits, nothing to do here. Rendering, all good. Advanced, you can play with some settings here, but I keep this pretty standard. Preferences, once again, all pretty standard. Now go to content. Once again, this is all standard. And then for duplicates, I do enable near duplicates. I do enable spell and grammar check. And then for the embeddings, I do enable all of these as well. So semantic similarity and low relevance as well. Okay. So these are important because this can help us, kind of do some deeper analysis. I won't get into it right now, but for now, just the settings. All right. So that's the first part. Now what we want to do is go into the API access, and there's three minimum that I would recommend. Number one is Google Analytics 4. So go ahead and set that. I just click this little gear icon and you need the API. You can go and log in. Google Search Console, the same thing. You're going to go and log in as well. And then the page speed insights as well. So that's another one that's going to require an API. But these three here are going to give you a massive amount of data to work with. And we're going to be able to make really data-driven decisions. And if you want to do anything more advanced, you can certainly integrate some of the AI platforms as well. But it's not really entirely necessary. Really, you just need these three to get a really good idea of what's going on. So that is the setup. Go ahead and get all of this set up, get all the APIs right. And then you're just going to start that crawl. And then I'll show you the next steps from here. Number two, find internal linking opportunities. So once the crawl is complete, go ahead and export this report and we're going to put it into a Google Sheet. But I would actually keep this open because I'm going to be showing you some other stuff later on in this video where you can use Screaming Frog to see some visualizations. Okay. First, let's go over here to this section. You can see I've already imported the crawl. Okay. And first thing I want to do is you want to find internal linking opportunities because in my opinion, when it comes to technical SEO, internal linking is one of the most powerful moves you can make. So what I like to do right away is go ahead and freeze the top row, add a filter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at just indexable content. And we'll go ahead and look at this other stuff here coming soon. But for now, we're going to scroll over and immediately go to very, very important columns when it comes to internal linking. First is crawl depth. So this column right here, I'm going to open that up. And what we want to look at is any page that is deeper than 3 clicks. Okay. So we're going to go down here and you can do conditional formatting if you want to, do this quicker. If you've got a bigger website, you'll probably need to do that. But for a smaller website like this one, we're just going to go ahead and mark it like this. Okay. Then what we're going to do is, and by the way, crawl depth is simply how many clicks does it take to get to that URL. So the deeper it is into your website, the worse it's going to be for crawling and most importantly for indexing. And if your page doesn't get indexed, you're simply not going to rank. So it's really one of the most important things that you can do. All right. Unique in links. Very important is the quantity of unique pages that are linking to that page. Okay. Internal links only. Okay. So for me, what I like to do is do A to Z, and any page that has, we'll say in this case, maybe less than 3 internal links, we're going to go ahead and mark it. But, for the sake of this argument, let's go ahead and mark anything less than 5. Okay. Less than 5. So what we're starting to see here is a trend that we've got a lot of pages that are already based on the data. We've got tons of pages that are buried deep into the architecture, and we've got a lot of pages that do not have a lot of internal link support. So that's typically a symptom of a few things. Number one, we just haven't gone through the process to inject internal links on relevant pages. And number two, it can sometimes be a symptom that those pages don't have a lot of topic support. And we're talking more about that here in a second. But this is one of the best places to start because you can really get a good look into some really quick wins that you can attack. Number 3, find page loading speed opportunities. All right, so now let's use this report to go and find some page loading speed opportunities. So go ahead and just scroll over, and you're going to go all the way past here, and we're going to look specifically at this column here, which is performance score. Okay. So when you are running your crawl with Screaming Frog, you can, if you have it enabled, it will give you tons of data about loading speed. I don't think that's particularly important. I think you just, like in the case of the audit, we're just trying to identify the really lowest performing opportunities. Okay. So right here, we're going to see that based on the performance score, to me, anything that's below an 80 is something I'm probably just going to go ahead and mark. Okay. Because once you get to about an 80 performance score, you're going to be pretty good. The law of diminishing returns will start to set in. So there's probably not going to be much benefit beyond that. But all of these are relatively low. Okay. So basically, nearly every page on the site needs a lift as far as loading speed, core web vitals, whatever it may be. Okay. And this is not because optimizing for core web vitals is a direct ranking factor. It's more of an indirect ranking factor, meaning if a user gets to your website and they're having a poor experience, there's a high probability that they're not going to stay there long and they might bounce back to Google, which is also known as pogo sticking. They may have, produce really low engagement rate on that page itself. So all those are negative signals, but that's not all. On top of it, we know that large language models, when they land on a site, they give very, very little time. You have probably less than 3 seconds for that page to load before that, that crawler bounces. So if you want to get good performance on Google, ChatGPT, and AI search platforms, loading speed is really, really critical. So it's not necessarily because it's a direct ranking factor. It's more because it's going to make your crawling and your indexing better. And of course, it's going to make user experience better, which we know translates to better conversion. So there's no reason to not do it. It's something that it should absolutely be a priority because it is one of those lead domino things that affects so many different areas in your campaign. So I'll be showing you what we can do to fix this. But for now, we can just get a really high level overview. And if we want, I'll show you a real quick example of this. If you download the Lighthouse extension, it might actually be native inside of Google Chrome, but if you go in here and then you do view page source, okay, actually we'll just do inspect. And then we're going to do this and we're going to scroll over and you'll see here Lighthouse. Okay. And if you want on a page by page basis, you can run this. Okay. So for example, we'll do desktop since most of my traffic is desktop. And then we'll just do this. And what it's going to do, it's actually going to, on the spot, analyze just this one dedicated page. And if you do this for 5 to 10 pages, you're going to get a really good idea of the opportunities that exist. Now, the good news is when you fix one page as far as loading speed, it typically impacts the whole site as a whole. So it's not like you need to go page by page and try to fix these. Okay. So based on what we're seeing here, this one is actually doing really well on desktop. So not any issues on that front. So what I would do is I'd actually run this on mobile and see if mobile's the thing that's causing a problem. Okay. So, but just to give you an idea, this is how quickly we can see this and then we can start to diagnose and fix this. Number 4, find 404s and broken links. All right. So now let's find some 404 errors. So not every 404 is bad. It's okay to have a 404 error if that was the actual intent, meaning you wanted to delete that page and you want Google to remove it from the index. That is totally okay. Not all 404s are bad, but the 404s that are actually bad are the ones that have positive KPIs or that were accidental in nature. Okay. So scroll back over in your crawl and you're going to look under the status code column here and make sure that for indexable, we're going to go ahead and actually do non-indexable. So we're going to get a good idea of these different status codes that we can work with. So, but for this one, we're just going to focus on the 404 specifically. So we're going to click on this. And you can see we've got a significant amount of 404s. We've got about 53 404 pages. Okay. Now, a lot of these are intentional, or a lot of them are intentional, outdated content, stuff that shouldn't be around anymore. We just went ahead and deleted it. However, what you want to do is you want to scroll over all the way over here. Then we're going to look to see if these pages have KPIs. Okay. Now, what I'm seeing here is a lot of these pages do have KPIs. Okay. So we have, actually every single one of the 404s with the exception of one has some positive KPIs. Okay. So pretty much all of these are going to need some sort of action here. Okay. So we have almost all of them have traffic. Most of them have impressions in Google Search Console. Some are even getting clicks. Some are actually getting events as well. And the engagement rate is pretty decent on some of these, even though they're 404s now. So this is not a good sign. This is something that we need to go and fix, right? So we need to figure out where can we send these 404 pages? Where can we redirect these pages? Or how can we improve these pages to recapture this potential traffic and engagement? Okay. Because based on what we're seeing here, this is over the last year or so, we're looking at 5 million impressions that are now going to be lost basically to zero. Like we're going to go to zero on these pages because they're 404s if we don't act on this now. So this is really not a good thing. Number 5, find thin content. All right. So now we're going to find some thin content. And so there's lots of different ways to define what thin content actually is. I would argue that it's not just about word count. You could technically have a page that has a significant word count that doesn't add anything new to the equation that could be considered thin, in my opinion. However, for the sake of this argument, we're just going to focus on word count alone. So go ahead and scroll over and we're going to look at the word count column. Now, for a page to be considered low word count, in my opinion, it has to basically be below 500 words. So if it's below 500 words, it's going to get flagged. Okay. This doesn't mean that we're going to go and just add a bunch of junk content on here. It just means that now it's been flagged and now we're going to put it into further investigation. Okay. So that is it. It doesn't mean we're going to act on it. It doesn't mean we're going to actually go and try to fix these pages necessarily, but they are now in a little bucket where now we can start to see what's going on and see if there's an opportunity to improve these pages, possibly delete some of these pages, whatever it may be. Number 6, find duplicate content. So for a page to be considered duplicate, it means that it has the same exact content on more than one page. Okay. And this is obviously not a good thing. We don't want to have multiple pages with the same exact content on our website. Now, if you did the Screaming Frog crawl configuration correctly, you can scroll over to the right and you go to this little section right here, which is closest near duplicate match, or number of near duplicates. This is the amount of pages that are basically exactly the same. Now, in the case of Gotcha SEO, there aren't any, so this is not showing up. However, if you want to double check, you want to make sure that there's not any pages that are, exactly the same, go ahead and run a SiteLiner crawl. And you run a SiteLiner crawl, and then you go to duplicate content. And anything that's below 30% is probably not anything you need to be concerned about. But we do want to look here and go ahead and sort this by match percentage and see if there's any alarming issues here. Now, we see that there's, pagination going on here from the blog. This is all stuff you can ignore, nothing to be concerned about. But I'd be more concerned about actual pages where there's a lot of duplication. Okay, so this one here, where there's like 32%, we want to see where there is duplication occurring. Okay. So based on what we're seeing here, there is some stuff that is relatively similar across multiple pages. So this may be a situation where we may want to consider making this a little more unique than what it currently is. It's not an exact match, but it's very, very close to the point where I would actually flag this page as an opportunity to upgrade and improve. Okay. So use SiteLiner to your advantage. Number 7, find keyword cannibalization. So now we want to find instances of keyword cannibalization, which is when you have two pages that are basically competing against each other for the same exact keywords with the same exact intent. Now, this is one of the most confusing concepts for a lot of people. So I'm going to try to make this really, really clear. Okay. So I'm going to show you an example of one that you might think is keyword cannibalization, but it isn't. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of this. So I'm going to go to rankability.com and I'm going to show you how I do this on our website here. So an example is like we go over here to the products and we go to content optimizer. Okay. Now, if we look at the detailed Chrome extension, you'll see that this is optimized for best AI content optimization tool for SEO. Okay. So specifically best, SEO content optimization tool. So singular version of that keyword. But then as we just did recently, we published a blog post and we're actually going after, once again, best AI SEO content optimization tools. Okay. So some people would think that those two pages are going to compete with each other, but they actually are not. And the reason is because cannibalization isn't just about the seed topic that you have here. It's also about the intent of the page and how it's structured. So for example, that previous one I showed has commercial intent. It's talking about our one tool that we have, and we're stating the benefits of using that tool specifically on that page. It's a sales page, right? It's a sales page. It's not the same. This here is for someone who's doing investigative research and trying to come to a buying decision. They're trying to figure out what is the best tool that I should use. So this is different because this is a buyer's guide. Okay. It's very, very different. Plus, the commercial page, as I showed you before, is a singular variation here, for the keyword. So we're talking about one tool, just one tool, and it's this one, and this is the one we're talking about. The other ones are plural. Okay. So we're talking about many different tools in this instance. Okay. So very, very different. This is not keyword cannibalization. And in fact, this is exactly what you should be doing pretty much in any SEO situation. You can have your commercial page, and then you can have your, buyer's guide with commercial intent / investigative intent. Okay. Those two things are not going to compete with each other. In fact, they actually tend to lift each other up. It's quite cool when you see it happen. Okay. Now, if we wanted to find keyword cannibalization within our crawl, it's actually really simple. So let's just pretend like I'm going to find some in here. Now, more than likely, we're not going to have keyword cannibalization, but let's give you an example of what I would do if I was trying to find it. So I usually start with the title. Okay. And let's say I wanted to find keyword cannibalization for SEO training specifically. Okay. So we're going to run that through. We're going to do text contains. We're just going to look at SEO training. Okay. So what we find here is a bunch of pages that are all optimized for that one seed, right? Just SEO training. But when you look at these, none of these are cannibalizing each other, okay? Because each of them is targeting a different location. Some of them are targeting, kind of have that, the homepage has more national intent, but none of these are actually competing against each other, okay? That is the key. So you can still have that same seed in there as long as there's other modifiers in there to modify the intent. Right. And that's all that matters. So, if this was, let's say I did have multiple pages about, SEO training in Baltimore, like let's say I had 2 or 3 of those pages, then we start to possibly cause some problems, and that's not going to probably produce any positive outcomes. Okay. But as long as the intent is different, as long as it truly is a different page, then you're probably not going to run into keyword cannibalization. It's one of those things where people really put way too much emphasis on it. And I've seen tons of websites that just don't care about it at all, and they do pretty well. But I wouldn't recommend that. I would still, focus on one core topic per page. And then the general rule of thumb is if you want to create another page, make sure that it has different intent. Number 8, find irrelevant content. All right. So now it's time to find irrelevant content. So this is really important because we want to make sure that our topic authority and our topic focus on our website is very, very tight. We don't want to start venturing off into topics where we don't have subject matter expertise. And on top of it, it's also really, really hard to build a really tight cluster, which I'll be showing you here in a second. But first, we want to identify this content that's just totally off base. Okay. So there's a lot of ways we can do this, but let's just make it really simple. So we know that obviously this website's about SEO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search the title tags. Okay. So text does not contain and can be a quite powerful ally here. And I'm going to do SEO. Okay. Because anything that doesn't have SEO in it is probably a good candidate to start investigating. Okay. So when I look at here, I can immediately start to identify some irrelevant topics. So like this one here, which is best script timer for 2025. Now, funny enough, this page I built back in, I think it was maybe the beginning of 2023, because I was actually showing people how to build a free tool using ChatGPT. And this thing still actually ranks pretty well, but it isn't very closely related to the core subject matter expertise that we have on the site. So this would be a candidate likely for redirection, maybe deleting, something like that. Okay. And we can go down the list and kind of find these ideas. So this is what you want to do though. You want to kind of go through these and look for these opportunities. We have another one here that's about pocket alternatives. Once again, this was an experiment that I ran to show people how quickly they could build a website using vibe coding. Okay. And so I created this post so I could help lift a test project that I created. Now, once again, not very relevant. And you can see it doesn't connect well to the core topic really at all. Okay. So these are the types of pages that you want to start to be pretty ruthless about. And if they have positive KPIs, as we can go over here and check, you have to think about how can we try to preserve some of these positive KPIs that exist. Okay. So like this one here has pretty significant amount of traffic over the last year. Same with this one. Okay. So, we could just totally eradicate it and lose out on that traffic, or we can try to figure out a way to rework it to make it relevant. So there's a lot of options. Number 9, find weak clusters. All right. So now what we want to do is identify weak clusters. So a cluster is simply a group of pages that are all around one particular topic. So let's say at the core of a cluster, we have content optimization tools. We're going to have, various posts about alternatives and reviews about various tools that are all going to link back to that one core center. And so we want to find these really tight clusters, but we also want to find these really weak clusters. And you can usually improve performance for SEO just by improving the strength of a single cluster. So I'll show you an example of this. So let's look on Gotcha SEO specifically and look for an example of like a pretty strong cluster. So if you look at like, SEO training, for example, you can see we've got a pretty significant amount of pages that are on this core topic. Okay. So around 20 pages, give or take. So I would say this is a moderately strong cluster. Okay. It's not super strong, but it's pretty decent. Okay. Then I'll show you an example on rankability of one that I would consider a very strong cluster. Okay. So we'll go over here and we'll go to blog and we'll look at this one here. Okay. This is an example of a pillar post. This is a listicle that's obviously targeting the kind of investigative intent for these AI search rank tracking tools. But within this, we've covered each of these tools that exist. But on top of it, we've also created individual reviews for each of the brands that are in this cluster. Okay. And we're building out alternatives and a bunch of other different versions of this. So by the end of this one pillar post will have potentially 75 to 100 supporting assets around it. Okay. So people do not go that deep, and you can get a huge advantage over your competitors by going a mile deep on these topics. So the best thing to do is if you're seeing low performance for a particular topic, examine the support that you've built around that topic. Number 10, find content quality opportunities. So now we're at a point where you're going to have to start to analyze each individual page on a qualitative basis. So we're going to let the data lead us to these pages, but then you actually going to have to look at them and really kind of diagnose each individual page. And so the way that I'm going to do this as far as content quality is I'm just going to look at the metrics, the best place to start, and see what pages are not performing particularly well from an organic search perspective. So we're going to go over here, and the best thing to do is just filter by impressions, because impressions is directly from Google Search Console. And so we have a very low number of impressions. It means this page is not ranking for very many keywords within the top 100. So that's a very good place to start. And so based on what we're seeing here, if we just look at these, we'll just take the top, 10 to 15 pages here, and we'll just highlight them in yellow. And we can go over here and see what are the types of pages that tend to not perform very well from an organic search perspective on our website. Now, this website is very unique because we have a lot of alumni from Gotcha SEO Academy. So these are all alumni pages. And I'll show you an example of, Chris Dreyer. This is a dedicated page specifically for Chris Dreyer, who's the founder of rankings.io. And it naturally is not going to get that much traffic because that's not really what it's designed for, right? You can tell it's just pretty simple. It kind of shows his credentials and his certifications and obviously a quick testimonial, and that's it. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, I could certainly beef this page up a little bit more, right? I could add a little meat to this page. I could give a little bit of a better bio about Chris. I could interview Chris and put that transcript on there. So there's a lot of options for adding a little bit of relevant meat to this page. But at the end of the day, this isn't your traditional SEO driven page. So, but these are the types of pages you want to pay attention to. And we just don't want low quality stuff. That's really what matters. And that is what you should be on the hunt for, is finding the stuff that's just not worth keeping on the site anymore. And typically, if you find pages, my general criteria is pretty simple. If the page has no traffic, no impressions, and it has no backlinks, it's a pretty good sign that it really shouldn't exist anymore. Okay. And that, like, all of the signals are pointing towards that page just generally not performing well unless it's new. But if it's an established page and it has all of those, the lack of metrics, either A, the strategy wasn't good, or B, you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and kind of reformulate a strategy, or in most cases, just delete it and, move on. Okay. So we have to identify these pages so we can keep our site very, very lean and not waste precious crawl resources on pages that just didn't work. Number 11, find on-page SEO opportunities. Okay, so now you want to look for just basic on-page SEO 101 opportunities. And so a couple key things you want to look for on any page that we're actually trying to drive organic search traffic on is you want to make sure that the keyword appears in the title, the meta description, also in the URL, and we want it to appear in the H1 and the first sentence. So when we look at this page, once again, this is an alumni page, so it's not necessarily really built for SEO performance, but it doesn't mean we can't squeeze more out of it if we don't want. So if we wanted to. So what I would do is to squeeze more out of this is think about, okay, Graham, instead of just trying to rank for his name, what else can we rank for? Can we rank for his brand name? What else can we do to drive more organic awareness? And so what I would show you an example here of like proper on-page SEO. Okay. So like this one here is just, and this is what I call bare minimum on-page SEO. Okay. So this is an example. We've got the keyword in the title tag. We've got the keyword in the meta description, right? We've got the keyword in the actual slug in the URL. And when we go to the headings, we've got it in that first H1. We've got a variation in the H2, which is also a good idea. And then we've got it also in the first sentence. Okay. So if you do that, that's like 50% of on-page SEO. The other part of this that's really important is using NLP, natural language processing, or sometimes also called NLU, which is natural language understanding, which is a subset of NLP. And we want to use that technology to our advantage to make sure that we're covering the most relevant topics inside of our content. This is literally proven to work. So I'm going to show you here in a second how to do that. Number 12, find content optimization opportunities. All right. So now you're at a point where you're going to want to start to audit each individual page to see how relevant it is. And typically what I'm doing is I'm focusing obviously on the pages that are not performing really well. So an example of this is for this page here, targeting dashboard alternatives. So in SaaS, this is a very common type of content framework to use. And so based on what we're seeing here right now, we're sitting around number 6, give or take. So we'll go ahead and just run this through rankability. Very simply, we're going to put the keyword in here. We're going to select import URL content. And then we're going to put the URL in there and then just run the optimizer. All right. As soon as the report is done, go ahead and click through, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the opportunities that exist. So based on what I'm seeing here is we already have some opportunities to improve this content. And so you have to keep in mind, whenever you optimize a piece of content, sometimes at the time it was well optimized, but as it starts to age, as it starts to get older, you have new competitors that are coming up, which means the overall amount of topics can change, and it can change the whole dynamic. So it is, to a certain extent, I'd say within, a year or so, it is worth revisiting assets. And there's a good chance that you're going to potentially fall if you don't keep up with this. So an example of this is right now, we see the competitors, the ones that are ahead of us are pretty well optimized. And obviously you expect dashboard to be number 2 because it's their brand. They're probably going to do pretty well for this keyword. But the other ones, at least as of right now, are more relevant than we are. Okay. So if we want to improve our performance here, it's as simple as going in here and sorting this by unused and making sure we're covering all of these topics that we have not covered in this content. Okay. Now, You don't have to cover every single one. We typically recommend getting within, the optimal range of about 73 or whatever the optimal range is telling you. But aside from that, once you get there, you're pretty much good to go. We don't typically recommend people going up to 100. That just is usually very, very aggressive and not necessary. But based on our experience, just a simple reworking of content, a little refresh, a little re-optimization usually gives a nice lift of at least 2, 3, sometimes even 4 spots. It is that effective. So especially when Google's already telling you that you're doing, pretty decently for this keyword, right? You already have a page that's pretty relevant. It's doing what it should for the most part. You just need to kind of rework it and make it more relevant. Number 13, find low hanging fruits. So at this point, you probably already have a lot of work to do just from this preliminary audit. But what you can also do is start to look at your keyword footprint. This is really, really important because there's so many opportunities that people are just sitting on and not even attacking, including myself. Okay. So I'm going to show you a quick example of this. So what I would recommend doing is going and clicking average position. And then we're going to go down here and you can sort this based on a particular cluster. So like if you want to add a filter, we could just go ahead and sort this by, we could do like, training, for example, since that's kind of our core thing. We'll put this in here and we're going to see what pages are doing pretty well, but would need a nice lift to go a little bit higher. So you sort this by position so we can see, the ones that are performing well, obviously, but we really want to look at the pages that are from positions 2 to 15. Okay. That's really the sweet spot where we want to go after particular keywords, particular pages. So based on this, we see Houston SEO training. We'll go and verify incognito and see what this looks like. And we could be number 1. So this is why it's good to verify, because this one, it would be wasted effort for us to go in here and re-optimize since we're already doing well. Okay. So let's go one that's maybe a little bit further down here in the ranking. So like this one here, which is AI SEO training. We'll go ahead and take a look and we'll see how we're performing for this one. We're going to go and scroll down and let's take a look. It said we're around page 2, give or take. So it looks like we're actually not. Page 3, possibly. Okay. So at this point, if we're not even on the first 3 pages for that keyword, some work has to be done, right? So we're going to have to go and re-optimize for this keyword, depending on, what page was getting picked up. Could be the home page, could be an internal page. We'd have to do further investigation, but this is the type of work you want to do because these keywords that are sitting in this sweet spot, it doesn't take a lot to lift them typically. Usually some re-optimization with rankability. That's the first move, making sure the content's obviously high quality and then going through and looking for internal linking opportunities, right? Because what you can do is you can go and take one of these pages, for example. And so we could take, one of these that's not doing super well. So Orlando SEO training. We'll go ahead and grab this URL and then we can go back here into this section and we'll actually sort this to find it. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and find that specific URL. And then what we can do is go and see how much internal link coverage does this URL have. Okay. And we're going to take a look. So based on what we're seeing here, crawl depth of 16. Remember, we found this earlier. So it's buried super deep into the architecture and it has very little internal links. So right away, I've already got 2 quick wins that I could go and attack right now to improve the performance of that one page. Either create more content, look for more internal linking opportunities. There's a lot of things that I can do right away. And then on top of it, it's also loading incredibly slowly for some reason. So another opportunity for us to improve. So right away, we've already got optimize it with rankability to improve the relevance. We've got driving more internal links to it. And we've got improving loading speed. Just by those 3 actions alone, it's almost impossible to not see performance gains. If that doesn't get you to number 1 for whatever keyword you're looking at as a low-hanging fruit, then the next obvious step is to drive backlinks to that asset and the supporting assets around it. Okay. That's the next level. But for the most part, you can get very, very far with content optimization, internal links, and more topic support. Those 3 things are very, very powerful and wildly underestimated. So I would highly recommend looking at this bucket of keywords as you're sitting on gold. You should attack them right away. Number 14, find clustering opportunities. So once you've identified your low-hanging fruits, the next group of keywords that I really love to go after are what I call clustering opportunities. So any keyword that's from position 50 and beyond falls into this bucket of a clustering opportunity. Now, one nuance here. If you have a brand new page that you just published, it's very common to perform, between 50 and 100 in the rankings. Okay. That's totally fine. Ignore those. but it's more about the ones that are established that are not doing very well. So once again, Google Search Console, you go right in here, you can sort by position, and you can obviously filter by a keyword that matters to you. And then we're going to go in here and we're going to look for opportunities that clearly we're not doing a good job for. Okay. That's basically what this tells us, is that whatever page is being picked up that's, driving impressions here is not that relevant, is not that good in one way or another. Okay. So an example of this is technical SEO training. Now, I know our site very well. We don't have a technical SEO training page. We don't have a technical SEO training sales page or anything. Now, we have technical SEO training inside of Gotcha SEO Academy, but we don't have a dedicated landing page for it. And this is really important because what this tells me is that there is actual search demand for this, which means it's worth pursuing. It's worth building a dedicated page. I have the proof now. Okay. So sometimes you can look at these clustering opportunities as a way to measure demand. Okay. That's really, really important. So once you've identified that demand, go and build those dedicated pages because you have the proof. Very likely it's going to do very well. Now, the question is, how would I do this? Not much of a surprise here. I take this keyword, I go into rankability and I run it through specifically the content optimizer. And I'm going to grab all the NLP keywords from this. Okay. I'm going to build a whole list of the NLP keywords and I'm going to build an outline. Now you can do this with AI inside the platform, but my criteria for determining whether I'm going to use AI or manual is based on competition. So if it's lower competition, I'll go basically fully AI. If it's higher competition, in the case of the SEO industry is much higher competition, I'm typically going to, do a little bit of more manual work to attack that keyword. Okay. So an example like this, I'll probably build out a commercial page and I'll probably use a lot of artificial intelligence for that. Okay. But just to give you an idea, this is where I always begin because the most important ranking factor in Google is relevance. There's nothing more important than just getting a relevant page other than actually getting it indexed. But after it's indexed, making sure that it's highly relevant to the keyword you're attacking. And this is a tool that you can use to do that. Number 15, find topic domination opportunities. So topic domination is simply the process of attacking a keyword or topic on your website and then taking that same exact topic and attacking it across other platforms that Google is known to index on the first page very well. And also that ChatGPT and other AI platforms are known to use as a source of retrieval. Okay. So you want to try to blanket as many of these surfaces as possible to greatly influence the AI generated responses inside of ChatGPT and the other AI platforms, but also to cover more surface area in traditional search as well. So an example of this is what I would do is I go into Google Search Console and look at some keywords that I'm doing really well for just from a traditional SEO perspective. An example of this would be SEO books. Okay. So we could take this seed and this can be our focus of topic domination. So we'll go ahead and take a look. And we're going to go over here and we're going to look at how we're doing for this keyword. Now, as of right now, we only have one asset that's popping up, which is our actual book here, the SEO Entrepreneur. Okay. So that's good that this is popping up. We've got one win here, but that's not good enough. We're going to scroll down here and we're going to go all past this and we're going to try to find other situations where we also have some coverage. Now, it looks like this blog covered our book as well. Okay. So we're actually covered right here. That's also really good. Okay. So we've got two coverages on the first page, which is really, really good. But our website, our actual page here is ranking not really that great. So we'd want to focus here and push this page up much further. Maybe it needs a little bit of a refresh, needs a little bit of love, and we can push it back up towards the top. Okay. So that would be focus number one. Once that has been re-optimized and improved, my next move is immediately going to go to YouTube and I'm going to see if we've published any content about that particular topic. Okay. So we're going to go to YouTube and we're going to take a look. So we'll go to my channel and we know YouTube is one of the most powerful mechanisms for driving performance inside of Google because Google owns YouTube. So we're going to go here and we'll look at SEO book and see if we have anything about that. And I have one kind of book here or one short about it, but I don't have a dedicated video about SEO books in general. So that's a golden opportunity to attack that keyword, knowing that it's very likely to perform inside of Google. Okay. We know that that's typically what's going to happen. And it's a source of retrieval for the AI platforms. So we can see here, we've got a block right here where we could go and attack this keyword. This is the process of topic domination. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to examine the first page and say, okay, what other stuff is getting picked up here? Well, I see Reddit's getting picked up. So I need to go here and see, is there an opportunity for us to, inject our book into this thread? The answer is no, because it's archived. So we can't do anything about this, but we can keep tabs on future threads that will come that may replace this thread in the future. Okay. So we see we've got a bunch of other ones here that maybe we could go and investigate further. Once again, that's archived. And this is also archived. So we'd have to just kind of keep a pulse on this. But what we can do is we can take note of the subreddit that tends to pop up the most. It's the SEO subreddit. So we need to stay on top of this and set up alerts in case books plus SEO gets mentioned inside of this subreddit so we can jump on it and try to promote our book, right? It's very, very important. Okay. Then we're going to go down here and I'm going to look for any other places where I might be able to score some coverage. We already got coverage here. So then we'd look here on Search Engine Journal and try to see if we could pitch trying to get on this list as well. Now, this looks like all branded stuff. We're probably not going to be able to get on here. So you're going to have to kind of vet some of these opportunities. We've got Hrefs here. Once again, are we showing up in this list? It doesn't appear so. It doesn't appear that we're actually showing up on this list as of right now. So we would want to go and try to pitch our book to be on this list. Okay. Very simple as that. And so on and so forth. This is the process. And so you're looking at the opportunities here and then you're going and attacking those. That way you can get as many rankings as possible on the first page of Google. That's topic domination. Number 16, find critical citation opportunities. So one of the most powerful things you can do right now to influence the AI platforms is to just reverse engineer the citations, or in other words, reverse engineer the sources of retrieval that the AI is going to. So as you know, I won't get deep into it here. When you go into a platform like ChatGPT and you ask a question and it doesn't know the answer based on its training data or its training cutoff, it uses RAG to go and retrieve the information so it can generate an accurate response. So it doesn't have to hallucinate through this process. And so what you should do is, based on whatever keyword or topic you're going to go after, run that same exact topic through all of these different platforms. Now, what I recommend doing is run it through ChatGPT, run it through Perplexity, run it through Claude, and then run it through Grok. Okay. And the reason you want to do that is because each of these systems uses slightly different forms of retrieval. And you want to try to get kind of a cumulative look at all the different citation opportunities. And this is super simple. Okay. It's simple to understand, but not easy to implement. I want to be very clear on this. But what I like to do is I will run these queries through and I will look for the gaps. Okay. So I ran, best SEO books here. And we'll go down here and I'm going to go ahead and look at the citations and see, are we being mentioned on these citations? Okay. And so I'm going to go one by one and I'm going to see which of these we're being mentioned on and which we are not being mentioned on. Okay. And then the ones that we're not, we're going to go and do outreach. I'm going to repeat the same exact thing on Perplexity. Okay. Look at all the citations and find those where we're not getting coverage. Okay. Same thing on Claude. Okay. Same exact thing. We can go here, click on the citations. Once again, boom, we can see all the different citations where we can get more coverage. And once again, on Grok. Okay. You'll notice you're going to find a lot of similar citations, but you are going to find some unique gaps that maybe you didn't see if you only ran it on ChatGPT. So run it across all of them, and that's going to give you the greatest pool of opportunities. Number 17, find your competitors' top performing pages. While you can certainly go into ChatGPT or an AI platform and help it generate content ideas for you, it's never going to be as good as actually going and finding content ideas that have quantifiable proof that they're actually a good idea to build upon. The good news is if you have some competitors that have had some levels of SEO success or even content success, you can go and see the types of frameworks or templates that they've used. And you can produce use that same template to build something unique, knowing that it has a pretty high probability of working. Okay. So go into Ahrefs or SEMrush, your tool of choice, and then go to Best By links. Okay. And you put your competitor in here. And what we want to do is we want to see the types of pages that are proven to attract links. Now, I'm looking at exploding topics here, and there's clearly a trend. Okay. You could start to see the commonality among the pages that tend to attract a lot of links. It just so happens to be statistics driven pages. Okay. And once you find a framework that's already proven to actually attract these links, you want to repeat that over and over as they have done very intelligently. Okay. And so we know that this works. We know statistics are a very powerful technique for link bait, but it is going to be different based on the industry that you're in. But you can look at an industry that is not yours, and you can find templates and then apply those in your industry. And sometimes your competitors have never done that, and you'll get a huge advantage there. So, deploying the same exact strategy that's already been done a million times in a particular industry may not work as well. So it's really advantageous to transfer these ideas to different industries, and you might get more bang for your buck. Number 18, find misinformation about your brand. So I could dedicate an entire video to cleaning up and auditing your brand for consistency and accuracy. But just for a very quick thing that you can do today is you can probe ChatGPT's internal training data to see what it knows about your brand. Okay. So, and this is actually completely free to do. So you can just go into ChatGPT and go to the GPT section and then search generative engine optimization. Okay. Search that and you're going to find free GPT that I built a couple of months ago. And it's going to look like this. And all you have to do is just go in here and enter your brand name. But more importantly, if it's a brand that's not like really well known, like Nike, for example, or Disney, then maybe add a little bit of clarification in there so it can go through the neural network and try to, look in its base training data to see more detail about the brand itself. You need to add maybe a little bit of context, but just for the sake of argument, we'll just do, Disney like this. Okay. So we're going to run Disney, and this is built to only look at the core training data. So I do not have web search enabled for this. And that's by design. We do not want it to go to web search. We just want to probe GPT-5's training data. Okay. That's all we're trying to look for. So this gives us just a rough ballpark idea of, what ChatGPT knows about this brand to a certain extent. Keep in mind, this is not a perfect science. Some of this could be hallucinated. If it doesn't know, it might just make it up because, of course, it's not relying on web search. And when it doesn't rely on web search, it can be a little more inaccurate. So just keep that in mind. It's not going to be perfect, but it can at least give you a ballpark idea and help you see like, okay, doesn't look like, ChatGPT knows a whole lot about our brand. So we need to go and take the necessary actions to improve that.